So my whole life, I'm like, wow, well, I don't have a job with benefits, so like I can't afford to go to the dentist. And then all of a sudden, it was like $270 or whatever the number was, and I'm going, that's it. Like I was genuinely shocked. The number I imagined was so far off. I was in the thousands of dollars. That was the moment where I was like, how many beliefs around money do I have that are not real? They're not true. They're not relative or rooted in like my own income and my own circumstances. So here's what I did. When I grew up, when I was a kid, my parents would just say things like, we can't afford that, it's too expensive. Just these generalized comments, right? About things that we saw or what other people did. Or so my perspective is I didn't actually ever know how much we made versus how much those things cost that were too expensive. Even a specific example is the dentist, okay? I never went to the dentist regularly growing up as a kid. Okay. Because we couldn't afford that and we never had benefits and we didn't have these things. So you hear these words, but they're not defined. So when you hear the word, we don't have benefits, what does that mean? I don't know. Like, I'm just asking in general, what does that mean? How much is the benefit? You know what I mean? Like if I don't know in Amsterdam if it works the same way, if you have benefits, if you have a job or you get these different types of things, I don't know. But it's like, how much is it? And people make these comments all the time. Oh, that's not a great job because it doesn't come with benefits, right? Like, what's the benefit? Like a free cookie at the lunchroom? Like what is it? Like water from a water, you know what I mean? So in my head as a kid, I filled in the blank with quote unquote benefits, but it wasn't based in reality. It wasn't true. Make sense? So my whole life, I'm like, wow, well, I don't have a job with benefits, so like I can't afford to go to the dentist. It must be so expensive. And so expensive in my mind is a number that is based on my own circumstances and my own income, right? It's relative to you. So the next thing you know, I had a toothache. I had to go to the dentist all of a sudden. It was no longer just a nice, convenient thing. And I get the bill, and the lady's like, do you have benefits? Do you have this? Do you have that? And I'm like, nope, nope, nope. And she's like, oh, and even the woman at the dentist was making a big deal, making me feel some type of way that I didn't have this thing. And then all of a sudden it was like $270 or whatever the number was. And I'm going, that's it? Like I was genuinely shocked. Now, I'm not saying $270 is not a lot of money to some people. That's not my point. The point is that the number I imagined was so far off. I was in the thousands of dollars for whatever reason. I don't know why. And I just thought it was so expensive, like it would ruin me or like bankrupt me or something. You know what I mean? This is the perception that I had. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh. And I'm like, so like how much is it cleaning? And they're like, oh, this much, 100 and some, $175 something. I'm like, that's it? So this whole perception around expensive and money and I can't afford it was all based on imagination. I was making this stuff up. So that was the moment where I was like, how many beliefs around money do I have that are not real? They're not true. They're not relative or rooted in like my own income and my own circumstances. Because at this point, I was making multiple six figures in door-to-door sales. So it's not like I was broke or minimum wage or anything like this. So obviously my income was growing, but my beliefs didn't grow with them. This is making sense for everybody what I'm saying. And a lot of the times we don't actually realize that we have these limiting beliefs around money, around stuff that just seems so straightforward, like going to the dentist or something like this, or eating out, or buying new clothes, or booking a flight, traveling the world, or whatever it is. So back to the point is I started to go, okay, so let me go online and research how much things cost that I want. How much does it actually cost? Because most likely what I think it costs and what it actually costs, there's a gap because I continue to prove to myself that I'm way off. Like I'm just so out of touch with reality or the truth. And so what I needed to do was basically shop around. I needed to go ask these types of questions. Like for example, in your case, maybe you want to live in a different part of town, or maybe you want to have different amenities, or maybe have a view and you don't have one now, as an example, or have extra room or extra space or whatever. Or maybe you want to have a house instead of an apartment, or those kinds of things. So all of a sudden, if that's the truth, or maybe you don't want any of that, that's just an example, then you have to look into that. You have to go exploring, right? Maybe a lot of the times I tell people, like, some people don't want a big house, or they don't want to have a supercar or something like this, or they don't care for materialistic stuff or designer stuff. That's fine. You don't need to have or want those things. But whatever it is that you do enjoy, let's say you love to play sports, like ride a specific type of mountain bike or speed bike on the road, or if you go running outside, maybe you want to have the very best type of shoes that are supportive for your feet. And those are like hundreds of dollars versus just regular tennis shoes or running shoes or something. So I always tell people the Diamond Life philosophy is whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're interested in, whatever it is that you want to do with your life, get the very best quality of that. If you're a musician, get the best quality guitar because you deserve to have the best one. If you are an online business owner, get yourself a proper computer, like top of the line computer, or a phone or a camera or light or whatever. And don't make it about, can I afford it cheap or this or that. Is like, set that standard that this is the best in this particular thing that I want to do, and then go earn it, right? Go earn it with sales, work your way up, and eventually you will feel like your self-worth is matching your equipment and your lifestyle and the things that matter to you. So in your case, the way that you said it earlier about you wanting more, it's not clear enough. And that's why you won't have it. So you need to take your current expenses that you're spending at the moment, and then you need to compare the gap between what you have and what you really want. And you may not want specifically to upgrade everything. That's fine. But is there something you want to upgrade? Maybe it's a travel budget, right? As you mentioned. Maybe it's having more fun or more adventures that cost some money to go do those things with friends that you feel like you're not budgeting for those things at the moment, right? So go find out these trips that you mentioned before, your friends inviting you somewhere. How much extra money per month would you want to have coming in every month? Where when they ask those questions, do you want to join us? Do you want to come here and want to go there? The answer's just based on whether or not you want to do it, not whether or not you can afford it. And this happened to me too. I can relate to what you're saying. I was so broke at one point that I was the only one of my friends in my friends group that constantly couldn't go and do stuff because I didn't have the money. And I'm talking like not even crazy stuff. I'm talking like going downtown, going out for dinner, going to a nightclub, buying some drinks, like maybe a few $100 at the most. No chance. That was like half of my rent. You know what I mean? Like, don't have it. I can't afford it. And so I was always the one, no, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good time. I make up an excuse, couldn't go, whatever. And you're right, it sucks. And then in the summertime, there were like road trips that my buddies would go on. They'd go to Kelowna, they'd rent a place, they'd get a houseboat or something along those lines, and everybody would pitch in and pay. And I was like, so like, how much are we thinking? Oh, 500,000 bucks each. I'm like, what? What are you talking about, bro? Like, I'm so broke. I got like $7. Is $7 gonna help? And they're like, what are you saying? And a couple times they would say, don't worry, like, we'll cover you, that kind of shit. But then that also comes with a whole bunch of guilt and baggage and like, and then now I owe you one and now it's weird. And so, you know what I mean? I didn't really like to entertain those things as well. But then it got to the point where I'm like, I wanted to do a bunch of research and I started to understand the cost of things. And to find out how much something is free. I always tell people this. It's so fascinating to me that if you drive around the neighborhood of some nice neighborhood that you might want to move to or live to, and there's an open house, you can go to the open house. You don't have to pay admission to go there. Why do very few people go? They don't believe they're worthy. They don't believe that they belong. They feel uncomfortable or weird or like they'll be judged or all kinds of shit. That's not true, but it's literally free. And you can just show up and be like, hey, I'm here to check out this place. And they have no right to judge that, can you afford it or can you not afford it? That's literally their job, is to allow people to come and have a look. Same thing with clothing stores, car dealerships, all this kind of stuff. It's literally free to the public. I think there's a sign on the door that says no shoes, no shirt, no service. So just wear a shirt, wear shoes, and you can go inside. So it's like pretty basic, right? But people will not do it. They're like, I don't belong there. And that's for this type of person. And that's for rich people and whatever other belief they have. And so I started to put myself in these situations where I wanted to go and just be like, call it dream building or whatever you want to call it, where you're like, this Saturday, after I had a week at my 9 to 5 that I don't enjoy and I'm not making enough money, instead of wasting my weekends drunk and hungover and laying on the couch, I'm going to go to a couple open houses. I'm going to go to this place. I'm just going to experience what it's like, ask questions, find out how much it costs, and then go back and decide whether or not I actually want that, because sometimes you just don't care and you don't want it. And then you create a new budget. You're like, okay, well, I've been happy with 5,000 a month, but I really need 10,000 or 15,000 to be able to now do these things. And it becomes your new must. Once you set this new number, your brain starts to automatically go into solution mode. I have to solve this problem. How can I make this type of income? And so in this type of business model that we're in, it's usually a matter of more high ticket sales and growing the business like that. So that's my suggestion, is you need to spend the money, figuratively speaking, before you will earn it. So you have allocation and you know where it's supposed to go. Without that, the money does not flow towards you because you have no use for it. It will flow to someone else who has a use for it. Now, another major piece of this puzzle that often people miss in Agic as well is because we're independent distributors, most of the time people think about themselves or this business as a one-man operation, right? So we are the personal brand, our content, our message, it's our leads, it's our Instagram account, and we just build this thing. But what if you had a team of people around you supporting you? What does that look like? What if you had an assistant? What if you had someone, videographer, content creator, photographer, editor, a setter to potentially get you like people in your DMs, interested, getting them on the phone. Eventually you can have people even closing sales for you. So you can build a lean, small team around you. So how much does that cost? If you're interested in that, then you now need to make that a part of your goal to hit that type of income, as opposed to what happens to most people is they go, well, I need 5,000 a month to pay my bills. And then I also could use some support and some help in my business because I'm busy. I got a job, I got kids, I got, whatever, depending on the person. But I can't afford to hire anybody because I have no money left over. So you see how this is all very backwards thinking, right? So first we need to decide, what is the level we want to play the game at? And how can we grow into that? And how can we hire one person at a time, which gives back some of our time, makes us more money, then we grow our income, then we hire the second person. At the moment, I think I have, 15 to 20 people that work for me internally. They're salespeople, setters, editors, graphic designers, tech people, podcast people. Like there's a whole bunch of people that are all part of this machine. And basically the machine grows and their wages are all factored into that. So it's not like can I afford to pay my team this month? You know what I mean? Which is how a lot of people operate, is like, I got some money and the next month I have no money. There's no real system to run the show. So all of you right now are most likely thinking too small with what your income goals are, because they're based on your current circumstances and your current expenses and your current bills. There's no runway for you to grow of where do you actually want to be in 90 days, 6 months, 12 months, because you haven't went and researched what that looks like. And there's levels to the game, there's levels to the dream, and there's levels to how you can basically grow, and it has to be more strategic. So the first thing, to answer your question, I know this was a long answer, but is basically for you to decide, if all you're going to believe is that more is better, it's not enough. You will not make more. But why do you need more? And what is that more going to be contributed towards is the name of the game, right? Even right now, I'll give you another example. This is obviously like a very advanced example, but I'm buying commercial real estate. And I'm basically going through these processes where they're like, okay, you can buy like a 20 unit commercial property, like a small apartment building kind of thing, with commercial real estate on the bottom and then some housing above it. And it's 5% down. It's like $250,000 down. And they finance the rest. It's leased out. There's a property management and all this kind of thing. So in my head, I'm like, okay, so how can I get one of these apartment buildings every month or every couple months? Now that number for me to buy commercial real estate, the cash flow needed, the deposit, the down payment is becoming a part of my monthly income number that I need to create because there's a purpose for it, because I want to continue buying apartment buildings and units. This is making sense. So now instead of thinking to myself, oh, that number is something I got to save up for, I'm thinking, how do I actually create that month over month over month? So every 30 days, I'm buying more apartments. Make sense? And I obviously didn't start there, and that wasn't my first goal, but it's a progressive thing where I've always added in the next goal, figuring out the numbers, asking all the questions, sitting down with the salesperson, the broker, the realtor, whoever is, the person who's got that information. They're like the expert, and acting as if I can do it right now. I always act as if. So I'll sit down and be like, all right, so if I was going to buy this, tell me the details. They're like, okay, well, first you need this and you need that. And they tell me everything for free. And I go all the way to the last step. And I'm like, one little tiny detail, one little tiny detail. I don't have the money. I'll be back. But now I feel so powerful and have so much clarity because I took it all the way to that last step, right? So, yeah, if you look back in the last year of your life, how many things did you say no to because you couldn't afford it? And how much money would that have cost you if you did say yes? Do you know roughly?
No, not really. I think I always find a way, ask my parents or anything, but I didn't go on holidays. So let's say that's maybe 800 euros this year. So that's what comes up in my mind.
How
Buying
much how
clothes. So
much do you
let's
make on
say,
a sale right now? If you make a
hmm?
sale?
No, not yet.
No, but if you make a sale in a Magic, how much
Yeah,
would you make?
2280 euros.
Euros.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I will be there. Like I can afford everything that I didn't do this year, I think.
Yeah. So I think the lesson here from everything I've heard you say is that you're just thinking way too small. You really are. Because 2200 on a single sale is such a great income, even starting out before you rank advance and everything else. But you need to stretch, you need to dream, you need to go and like ask yourself if you could live this limitless diamond life approach, what would that look like? Right? Because until you get a taste of it, you don't know what it tastes like, and therefore there's no reason to actually grow. And that's where the comfort that you're talking about is trapped. I'll give you another example. When you go traveling, for example, the mindset a lot of people have is lack, scarcity, limitation, cheap, save the most money, the backpacker, the eat the cheapest food, all this kind of stuff. And I understand that because you're trying to stretch your money as much as possible to get the most. I get that, but it's also the antidote to high ticket income because you're thinking like cheap low ticket lifestyle, there's no reason to have a high ticket income. You need to have a high ticket mindset, which includes high ticket food choices, high ticket restaurants, high ticket hotels, high ticket experiences. Does that make sense? Why would you be successful in a high ticket business when you have a low ticket mindset about everything?
You wouldn't. No.
But do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so to so to me, the high ticket mindset has to come first, and then you feel empowered because you have a high ticket business to support the high ticket mindset. If you have a low ticket mindset, you're stuck in comfort and you're like in fantasy world where it would be nice if I made money in this high ticket business. It would be so cool because I would pay like 6 months of my expenses with one sale. That's the cheap ass way to think. You got to be like, yo, if I make a sale every single week, I can go live in the penthouse in the city. You know what I'm trying to say? Because, like, if you can live in these different types of ways, why wouldn't you? It's a weird way to think because society conditions us to think small. It conditions us to judge and hate on anybody with a lot of money. And so it's a very contrarian way to live your life. But if you ask somebody if they had a choice between living in a basement suite with no natural light or a penthouse, overlooking the mountains or the video, and they could choose either one, if it wasn't about the money, which one would they pick?
The penthouse.
That's what I'm saying. And it's not always about, penthouse and this and that. That's not the point. The point is that people will choose the option that gives them more joy, gives them more like that frequency. People gravitate, but as soon as it becomes about the money, they go, whoa, I don't need that, or something like this. And here's one last point I'll say about this too, is when you look at the hierarchy of needs, okay? Research this if you're not familiar. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The majority of the population operates in the basic needs section, okay? They stay there. But here's what I want you to entertain is if you ever have family, friends, people on the internet tell you like, I don't need that. Have you ever heard people say that? Like, I don't need this. I don't need that. I don't need a fancy car. I don't need a fancy. It's like, no shit, you don't, because all you need is food, water, air, shelter. So if you have the basic needs met, everything above that is a want. But we have been conditioned that wants are bad. Does that make sense? Like, what do you guys want? I'm curious. Put it in the chat right now. What is something you want that you think is like bad or naughty? Like, how dare you want something so nice and cool? There we go. G-Wagon. Let's go. I love that. But does it make you feel some type of way? Like, oh, or no? For some people, it feels weird. It's like just even saying it, I want a G-Wagon. And then immediately you have the thought of like, well, what's so-and-so going to say? And what's my neighbor going to think? Or what's my sister going to say? My sister drives a beat up, some kind of shitty vehicle, and I'm going to pull up in a G-Wagon. Oh my God. And all this stuff comes up for people. But, April, it sounds like you're past that point, which is amazing. But maybe in the past, there was that stuff, right? And it's such a strange thing. So once you kind of make peace with this thing, like, this is what I want. The reason we want certain things is because how it's going to make us feel, right? Everything that we have, every experience we have, every clothing, car, vehicle is about how it makes us feel, okay? So if you feel powerful, if you feel successful, if you feel like these types of things driving a G-Wagon, then like get a G-Wagon. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the same thing with my stuff too, is like you just feel some type of way and the frequency changes and you start to unlock these things of like, well, if I can have a G-Wagon, what else could I have? What else do I want? And you start to kind of like step into this powerful thing. And what is unique about Enagic and the business model that we're in is in order to unlock these things we want, we need to help other people get what they want. That's the difference. So in a traditional Fortune 500 type of company, it's very, there is definitely more corruption and there's more greed and there's more like selfishness in a lot of those companies because the person at the bottom can never have what the person at the top has. And so there's that, it's like a broken hierarchy of the corporate structure. But in Enagic, it's not like this. It's like when you are growing your business, what people want when they first come in are solving these basic problems around health, around income, around their job, around spending more time with their kids. So you're just focusing on giving and helping as many people as you can with that like level 1 goal, right? From where they are one level above. And if you help a whole bunch of people achieve level 1 of their goals, you get to unlock level 2 of your goals. You know what I'm saying? And then you help other people achieve level 2 of their goals and you get to unlock level 3 of your goals. And that's why even when I talk with some of my top leaders that are 6A2-3, 2-4, 2-5, they'll often say to me like, Balazs, you just keep raising the bar. You just level up. You get the next thing or you have the next experience or you show us what's possible. I'm like, but that's supposed to happen this way. It's the natural progression. Because more lives are being impacted, there's more success, there's more people ranking up, there's more people quitting their jobs, and all of that flows up towards me as well as a little residual impact check. So then I'm like, well, what's the next level of my dreams and my vision and my goals? And it allows me to step up and then everyone rises together. This is literally how it's supposed to be. This is like the ultimate. I always say like this is like God's plan or like the best business model for humanity because everybody's directly connected to making a difference in everyone else's lives. It's so powerful. So Long answer, but I hope this was valuable for everybody to tap into and realize that you're most likely operating in a needs, lack, and scarcity mindset and just not stretching yourself enough, where you're thinking about the commissions that you could potentially earn on a sale to cover where you currently are at with your bills. So when you think like, these are my bills every month, if I make one sale, it will pay X amount of time towards these bills. And that's just like the logical way to look at it. But instead, you have to go do research and ask yourself, like, what do I actually want? If I wasn't afraid of being judged, if no one was going to talk shit, if none of that existed, and it was just I could choose whatever, what does that look like? And then figure out what that would cost. And there's different ways of obviously getting things, like you can buy it in cash, you can do payment plans, you can lease it, you can finance it. There's all different ways, but you can literally find out and be like, okay, that's only two more sales a month. And that's where the aha moment happens, where you're like, no way, I'm that close. Does that make sense? Like if you wanted to quit your job and you make a certain amount of money in your job, and you're like, it's just this amount of sales in a month for me to not have to now go to work. That's right there. It's arm's reach. This is literally how I've done it. I've always been like, what's the next thing that is a bit of a stretch, but I could also feel like it's doable. And then I'd go get that. And then I'd be like, let's do it again. What's the next one? Let's do it. And if you build your business this way, if you build your lifestyle this way, if you build your income goals this way, you'll be amazed. But 100%, you are thinking too small. So that's the answer. Okay. And when it comes to your health, it's similar, where you want to ask yourself things like, what's the best that I could do instead of what's the least I could do to get some results? This is an employee mindset that has been ingrained in us. Most people who have an employee mindset have been taught to only do enough to not get fired. Think about how crazy that is. Have you ever started a new job and on your first day, you wanted to make a great first impression and you're working so hard and so fast and getting all this shit done, and all the other people that work with you are like looking at you like, calm the fuck down, man. Like you're doing like a whole week's worth of shit today. I think you're making us look bad. And then immediately you're like, oh, and the next day you come back and you're like lazy, you barely try. And everyone's like, like, how messed up is that? I'm sure you've had that happen to you too. Like, what's the bare minimum to just basically not be noticed that I get fired? This is then transferring over into your business. It's transferring over into your health, and you're basically not pushing yourself. Me and my coach, just give you an example. When I train, we're aiming for a personal best every single day. I literally find out in the morning, I'm like, what's my personal best on this exercise? Let's shoot for it. And almost always we hit it. Like either we match it or we hit it, depending on how I'm doing. Sometimes I'm just don't have it in the tank, and that's okay, but we're aiming for it. We're not just like comfortable and sitting there, not even trying. That's always the goal. So that's how you have to think about your exercise as well as your business. Like, what's your personal best? How can you beat it? How can you grow? And then business wise is month over month growth. So for example, if you had 5 book calls this month, then how can you beat that next month, right? If you had 1 direct sale this month, how can you beat that next month? So you have to set these personal targets, because you don't have a boss, and your boss isn't setting your KPIs, and your boss isn't setting all the goals and targets for you. You have to do it on for yourself. So when I got my sales numbers back at the end of the month, I'd always rally my team. I'd get on a call, I'd be like, this is how many sales we did last month. Let's beat it this next month, 10%. That was the goal. Grow by 10%, grow by 10%. And then at the end of the year, obviously we never grew by 10% every single month. Sometimes it was 2% or 5% or something, but we're always growing. And that has continued to happen now 12 years later. That's the mentality that got implemented into the culture. Okay. So your second question is around how you do love your ads. Your ads are basically something that you need to experiment with, but you also just need to get people to know your story and get more eyeballs onto your page, right? So right now you should probably be looking at growing your reach and your followers and your audience more than just simply looking at getting leads and sales, because you want to basically create more people who know you, to get to know you, get to like trust you, and that process takes some time, and then focus on the conversion piece later. Don't focus on it right away. Right now, just get more people who resonate with you, that are similar to you, to find out that you exist, and then talk about the reason why you're doing this business. And because you're thinking too small and you're not talking about your vision and your goals being exciting and ambitious and driven, you're probably getting a lot of people that are like, meh, But you start talking big, you start attracting big, and you start bringing in these other people who have big goals for their life as well. They just don't have a solution. You will start to get a completely different type of traction from your ads.
Thanks.
Like another last point is that I get these reminders on Facebook and I just love them so much because they're like my own status updates. But man, did I come out just talking a big game. It was just like a trusting, knowing, like confidence that I would figure it out. But I was also sounding delusional. You know what I mean? Like I was saying such big things like, I'm going to have this, I'm going to go here, I'm going to travel here, I'm going to help this many people. It wasn't like, one day I hope that I can eventually get around to helping somebody. I didn't talk like that. I'm not saying you talk like that. I'm just using it as an example. I was like, we will go and change the world. Watch us. Things like this, very short, punchy things. You know, I put things like one day I will be able to choose and go wherever I want. And that's always what I wanted. And I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but I'm not going to stop until I get it. These types of things. I would just say it randomly because I'd be thinking about it driving the car or sitting in my house or something. And then I'd just be so fired up from this thought that I'd put it as a status update and launch it. And then I get one like, and it was like my mom. And I'd be like, thanks, mom. We got this shit. One day I'm going to retire you too. Boom, did that as well. You know what I'm saying? So like there were these weird moments where at the time Facebook didn't even have the feature of like showing you those memories or whatever, like 1 year ago, 2 years ago. It didn't even have that feature back then. I didn't care. And now that it started to give me those, I'm like, damn, man. And it was sometimes it'd be like 2 or 3 or 4 times in one day I would talk some shit. So then what ends up happening is as the goals start to manifest and you hit a milestone and you hit 6A and you walk across the stage and you get recognition and these types of things, people start to go like, wait a second, he's saying this stuff and it's starting to happen, right? And the things that you're saying and the things that are happening are not a match. You're talking like way, way, way big, and the goals are kind of happening small and then a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. But here's the interesting thing. The energy behind that type of 1-2 punch of like talk a big game, follow up, talk a big game, follow up. Eventually, people that are watching you, they reach out. Hey, man, what are you up to? How does this thing work? And those are really powerful leads to get because those are the ones who are like, I see what you're up to. I see what's going on. You're working your butt off. You're confident. You're taking action. I just want the game plan. What's the game plan? How are you doing this? And then you get them enrolled and then big things start to happen. And then when it comes to like leaders who are in other companies, network marketing, affiliate marketing, direct sales, door-to-door, insurance, real estate, those types of careers, the consistency of not changing your mind and jumping around to other things and being like, this is the mission, this is the vision, this is what we're doing. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of just keep showing up and doing the same thing. That is what a lot of them are looking for, is a leader with integrity and a long-term vision that they can align with because they don't want to be disappointed if they bring in their communities or their followers, their audience, their customers into this Enagic business and have a flaky leader that they're partnering with. So that's another thing that all of you can like remember is the longer you do something, the more consistent you are, the more like rock solid you are not going anywhere, not doing anything, the more higher quality, reputable people will want to align with you and work with you over time. Does that make sense?